In this final video of the series, I make the case and assemble the pop-up box, installing the ribbon along the way. The case for this box is different to a case for a square back binding in that there's no text block that needs to open. I want the joints as tight as possible so the trays close together nicely, aligned with little wriggle. There are 3 pieces to this case, as in most cases: the 2 sides, which are identical, and the spine. The 3 pieces are all the same height, which is the height of the tray plus 2 squares, while the width of the sides is the width of the trays plus 1 4-edged square, and the width of the spine piece is the thickness of the 2 trays stacked together. For efficiency, I cut a wide piece of board to the height of the pieces and then cut the 3 pieces from this. Getting back to the spine piece, this needs to be as close to the thickness of the trays as you can make it. If it's wider, there will be a gap between the trays towards the spine, and if it's narrower, it might stop the box closing. There is a bit of give in the joint, so a fraction tight is better than too wide. Using my cutting technique, I can cut board to within 0.5 millimeter. So I measure the thickness of the 2 trays together, rounding down to the nearest 0.5 millimeter. Making the case is similar to just about every other case. I want to push the cloth into the joints from the inside so the inside corner edges of the board meet when closed. To space the gaps, I make a spacer gauge from 2 pieces of board and 3 thicknesses of cloth. The idea is the cloth needs to go down the sides of the 2 pieces of board plus cloth, and the 3rd thickness of cloth is to add some tolerance so the joint isn't too tight. If you're new to box making, I suggest you start with the same spacer, but with experience you may decide to tweak this. Maybe you decide you like tighter joints and only use 2 layers of cloth, and accept that occasionally you'll have a case that doesn't close as nice as you like, which can easily be remade. I like playing it safe but not sloppy, which I think this is. I've noticed some discussion lately about the best way to glue cloth to board. My preferred method is to glue out the cloth using a stippling motion with a fairly large round glue brush. This is a fairly straightforward and a traditional technique. My teacher would point out I usually don't hold the brush correctly, but let's not get too picky. The stippling motion gets the glue into the weave of the cloth and gives a nice even coating of glue. But a brushing motion works fine too, and with modern smooth cloth there's often no significant weave to get the glue into. Occasionally I will glue out the board and apply it to the cloth. I do this for convenience, for reasons such as not wanting to get glue on the material outside the edges of the board, or just being lazy and not wanting to work out where on the cloth I have to glue. The downside to gluing the board is that board absorbs moisture very fast and the glue can start to set before you get it down on the cloth, maybe resulting in weaker adhesion. There are things you can do to mitigate this. The main one is to glue out the board twice, with the first layer acting like a sizing layer to stop moisture from the second coat absorbing as quickly. I get the question often why I don't use a roller to apply glue. Usually I feel with the impression that people think I don't like using rollers. I have used rollers a lot in the past, mainly for doing small production runs. I even have a glue applicator which I've only seen work at the place where I bought it. I hope to do more production work in the future, which I will use a roller for, even maybe the glue applicator. But when I use a roller, something always happens and I don't use it for a few weeks, and when I get back to it, it's a solid lump of glue. Yes, I could wash it out, but that defeats the convenience aspect of using a roller. Plus, I use a big brush and I'm fast at stippling. Before the Bind 25 conference last weekend, I did a workshop with Ben Elbel. The hardest part for me when doing workshops is forcing myself to do the things the way the instructor does. You lose opportunity to improve if you don't focus on how the instructor works, how they hold their tools, where they stand in relation to the materials, and how they use their tools. I'm so set in my ways that for some things it's really hard to follow the instructor. Ben had this different way of trimming the corners of a case where he holds the corner with his left hand, collecting the corner waste as he cuts them. I trim with the corner pointing to the right. Initially I thought this was a great idea and went back to the bench and did what he did. Straight away I didn't like it. I found it hard to judge the distance from the tip of the board to where I wanted to cut because the scissors were in the way. I still did all 4 corners for 4 cases that way. Having thought about it a while now, I think I know how to overcome, or at least partially, the issue I had, but I'm still going to stay with the way I've always done it. It's a great example of 2 bookbinders having different preferred approaches, but with similar results. Personal preference rather than some hard technical reason being the difference. Now I have all the pieces, I can do a dry fit and see how it all goes together. Luckily it goes together really well. Before I do put it all together, I need to line the inside of the spine in the centre to hide the exposed joints. I cut a piece of cloth slightly shorter than the height of the slipcase and that extends a good amount onto the boards. I semi-randomly chose 40mm. Once I mark it on the case, I can measure the distance between the lines to get the width of the cloth I need. I add a bit extra, 6mm, for the cloth to get forced into the joints. I glue the cloth in place and use some knitting needles to press the cloth into the joints. Now it's finally time to start assembly. I'll start in the center by gluing the slipcase in position. Working out from the inside, the trays have to be positioned in relation to the slipcase. This is more important in the version where the trays nest inside each other. I just glue the slipcase centered on the spine board. The cloth I'm using has the trade name Arbolave, which has a very effective protective coating. It's often described as a library buckram because of this durability. Some people don't like the plastic look and feel of the outside coating. I love it, especially for making videos where I can just wipe any stray glue off the cloth without leaving a trace. But some people have told me they have trouble gluing to the outside of this cloth because of the protective layer. I've seen people rough it up with sandpaper and degrade the outer coating with ethanol. I've never had a problem gluing directly to the outside of Arbolave, but if you do have a problem, you might consider one of those options to make it take your adhesive better. I did try and break the slipcase off the cloth and it didn't look like letting go, and I didn't want to wreck it. While the glue dries, I get ready to attach the trays, which means putting the ribbon in. I need to finish the slots through the lining material inside the trays before putting the ribbon in. Since the ribbon doesn't slide through this slot, I make it a single cut thick, just enough to get the ribbon through. I poke the ribbon through the slot and glue a good 40mm to the outside of the tray. It's not going to pull out. I want the ribbon in place when gluing the trays to the case, just in case this has some impact on positioning. I'll glue the trays in one at a time, leaving the first to dry in place before doing the second. I glue out the base of the first tray, and then with the two trays in their final position, I close the case. I do this with the box standing on its spine to make sure the trays close perfectly against the spine board. I let this dry in position with some weights on the inside of the tray. Once the glue holding the first tray in position is dried, I can do the second. First, I need to get the ribbon cut to the correct length. I want the book fully extended out of the slipcase when the trays are open flat. The ribbon should be pulled tight when the box is fully open. If you want, you could adjust the ribbon so the trays don't fully open and the book starts to rise as soon as you open the box. Once the ribbon has been adjusted and glued in place, the second tray is attached the same as the first. Again, this is left to dry with some weights inside the tray. The final job is to add a label to the spine and any other decoration or finishing if you want, though any elaborate decoration is best done to the case before assembly. This project has been a long journey. Thanks for sticking with me on it. Just a reminder that this enclosure is a novelty. It isn't designed for protecting rare and old books. For protection, a normal clamshell enclosure is a better option. This box is for fun and for adding some creativity to a new bind or a special book. Over the Top with Jim is about growing up in Brisbane in the 1950s, about kids having fun and adventures in a simpler world. I loved this book when I was younger, and I thought the energy and dynamic nature of this box suited the book. There are many variations of this style of pop-up box, including the original by Hugo Peller. I hope you've enjoyed this project and it inspires you to make your own. If you want to see the almost 5 hours of this project in real time, you might consider supporting me on Patreon, where the slow bookbinding versions of these videos are posted. Until next time, cheerio!